All right, everyone. It is now 4 p.m. in Stockholm, Sweden, at least, where I am located, your host for the day. And I see that a few of you have found the check-in to the Mentimeter question here today. I see some of you sharing what university or higher educational organization in general that you are from in the chat as well. Super lovely. If you want to participate in the Menti, feel free to scan the QR code here to the left with your phone's camera, and then you will be able to answer these questions here today. Okay. It seems like I may have some issues with my internet, so I'm sorry if I am coming and going. Hopefully we will not have any further issues. But let's move forward and get this party started. So, very welcome to this session today. We are going to be talking about how you can get started with Mentimeter for educators. My name is Julia. I work as a customer success manager here at Mentimeter. If you have joined any of the other webinars that we host, you probably have seen me before. And in order to participate, as I quickly mentioned in the previous slide, please scan the QR code here on the left side with your phone's camera, and then you will be able to answer any questions. I have quite a few of interactive slides lined up for you as well. Or if you want to join with any other device, for example, your computer, laptop, whatever device you have that has a web browser, you can just go to menti.com and add the code that you see here on top of the screen, and then you will be able to vote that way as well. And today, you can ask any questions throughout the session. As soon as you have signed in, either through the QR code or through the link, you are able to type in any of the questions that you may have, and then it's going to be popping up here in the bottom right corner for me. And the session is moderated simply to avoid having multiple duplicate questions. So if you don't see your question popping up instantly, don't fret. It will be coming hopefully at some point or the other. But please feel free to have a lot of questions coming, because I do love questions. It makes it more fun for all of us, both you and me. So super excited. Let's get going. I thought we could start with creating a check-in question together. So today's going to be a bit more introductory, so I thought let's just get straight into it. You will see how I set up a check-in question. You hopefully find it very easy. That's a lot of the feedback that we get. So I'm just going to get going with that. And in order to do this, I just press escape on my keyboard. When I do that, this is the view that I get. Here on the left side are all of my slides, so I can navigate down in all of the slides that I have prepared for today. In the middle, that's the presentation area, so that is what you are going to be seeing when I start presenting. And here on the right side, we have all of the different ways to add content and to add interactivity, change the themes, and so forth. But what I'm going to do is that I am going to navigate up to the upper left side of my screen here, to this black button that says New Slide. When I press this one, this interactive questions bubble pop up, and I am able to choose whatever question type I want to use. First and foremost, we have the interactive questions here on top. So I have a few of these lined up for you today, such as the multiple choice and so forth. So you will soon see quite a lot of those. We also have quiz competitions. So that is when you get a leaderboard and a winner at the end, depending on if you answer correctly and fast enough. We also do have quite a lot of content slides. So all of the slides that you're going to see here today are created inside of Mentimeter, including the text slides that don't have any specific interactive parts. So you can create quite a lot of content inside of Mentimeter as well. And here at the bottom, we have some of our integrations, such as Google Slides, PowerPoint, and so forth. But I'm going to go up to the top, and what I'm going to do today is that I'm going to create a pin on image as a check-in question, one of my personal favorites, actually. If I press this one, this is what pops up. So the first thing I really need to do is to type in the question that I want to ask. So I'm going to ask, where are you in your Mentimeter journey? And as I'm typing that in, I am done. I can just move down to this area here, which will be the image that I want you to answer this question on, because this is a pin on image question. So if I press this area here, I will get this area popping up on the right side so that I can add my image to my pin on image question. If I press this area here, I can either upload something from my computer. I can also use image libraries, copyright-free images that you can use to your wish, or even a Giphy. But for today, I'm going to upload something from my computer. So I'm going to press this area here. You're not going to see all of the things that I see now, but what I'm going to do is that I'm going to be choosing this image here, which is the Dunning-Kruger effect that some of you may or may not be aware of. But now I'm basically ready to go. I have created a check-in question in Mentimeter. I can now navigate up to the upper right corner of the screen, which says present, the blue button here. And once I press this button, this question is going to pop up in your telephones or laptops or however you've signed into Mentimeter, and you will be able to answer me where you are in your Mentimeter journey based on the Dunning-Kruger effect. And if you haven't seen this one before, I'm going to add the QR code again for some of you that may want to join again, that may have joined late or anything like that. Basically, this is, if you haven't seen it before, I'm sure many of you have, but it's basically a theory saying that the more competence you have in a topic, the more you realize that the less your confidence increases. So at the beginning, when you learn something, your confidence is usually quite high. You're like, I know this. I know all of it. I'm the best. No problems at all. And then the more you learn about a topic, the more you realize, actually, I may not know a lot about this at all. There's so much more for me to learn. I'm sure I have quite a few researchers in this room with me here today, so I'm sure you're probably even more aware of this than I can possibly be. So even though Mentimeter by default is, at least from the feedback we get from many of our customers, it's a very easy to use tool. It can still be a fun exercise to learn where you are here in your journey. So it seems like we have a pretty spread group. Some of you are finding yourselves at the peak of Mount Stupid. Some of you are finding yourselves in both low confidence and low competence, but also a few of you kind of going up towards the slope of enlightenment and getting into the plateau of sustainability. So exciting to see that we have quite a few different journeys here. Thank you for sharing. But today, I am going to go through some of the basics. So hopefully the ones of you that find yourselves at the very lowest end of this curve, or even at Mount Stupid, you will learn something new and get inspired to how you can use Mentimeter within higher education. So the agenda that I have lined up for today is first and foremost, what is Mentimeter and why should you care from an educator perspective or from a higher education perspective? Then I will go into some common challenges within higher education that I hear a lot when I work with many of my clients. I work with universities all across Europe, sometimes even in the Americas, and I do hear quite a lot of different things and I picked out some of the things that I see being a little bit more of a pattern. And I'm really curious to hear if you feel the same, and I'm very excited for you to share with me your insights too. Then I'm going to be moving into some potential solutions for these challenges in Mentimeter. Also examples that I have seen being used by educators, and hopefully that you can steal with pride and get going with very easily. You will get all of these slides after the presentation automatically sent to you, so you don't have to worry about taking a lot of print screens, and you will very easily be able to copy all of the examples that I have presented today. Then I will go into some very quick platform walkthrough, showcase how you can use Mentimeter for PowerPoint, or rather guide you to a few different guides on how you can do that, because that's a quite common question that I get. So I have that lined up as well. And then we have a little bit of a bonus today. I'm going to be sharing a bit of a potential roadmap sneak peek, and you have an opportunity to share your thoughts here. So I will get a little bit more into detail on what that may be later. So I leave that as a bit of a cliffhanger, but I can give you a little bit of an idea what it's about. So it may or may not be around integrations. So stay tuned for the end if you want to be able to share your thoughts on this as well. All right, so what is Mentimeter? Very easily put, it is a platform that you can use to very easily gather input from a group and have it visualized clearly and beautifully in real time. And everything in there is saved. So some of the things that you gather, for example, from a student group or from colleagues, depending on what role you're in, is always going to be saved inside of Mentimeter. And you can go back and start crunching the data, remind yourselves, what was it that we talked about? What were the conclusions? You can even start to group things together to get a deeper understanding of trends and patterns and so forth. And I'm going to showcase a few different ways that you can do this today. But it's a great tool to really go back and use the data to the best of your knowledge. And this we have seen, and I have seen many times, can support educators to facilitate active learning. So Mentimeter, of course, has this very active learning and activeness part of it. So it's very easy for the students to be pulled into a lecture, for example, or for colleagues to be pulled into a meeting and so forth. And Mentimeter can also really help to leverage all the insights from the students in order to make sure that they maximize their teaching potential. Because as some of you may have heard before, I would be so bold to say that it's quite common knowledge that the more insights you get from a group, the better decisions you make. So this is also something that's applicable for the students' learning journey. The more insights they get exposed to, opinions and contributions, the more they can maximize their own learning journey and their learning potential. And Mentimeter is by default anonymous. So this really equalizes the opportunity for students to participate. So even the more introverted students are usually very happy to share in Mentimeter, and you can talk about topics that may not be so easy to talk about if it was not anonymous. For example, where the students find themselves in a course, if they tag along, if they feel motivated, those are the things that they may not always be very happy to share directly with their educator, for example. So I'm going to quickly go through some common challenges that I see within higher education. And then I have a question lined up for you if you recognize yourselves in these, or if there's something missing that you want to fill me in on. So in order for you to know what I'm talking about, I'm just going to go through them quite quickly. But first and foremost, keeping students engaged. I hear this all the time. Engaging and interacting with students in many different settings can be quite challenging. Sometimes students are online, sometimes they are in person, sometimes it's even a mixed group, some online and some are on campus. They can be large classes, they can be small classes, but it's difficult to engage and make sure and kind of know that the students are there with you, and to maintain their focus. Also, I'm going to back one step, to start conversations. It can be hard in especially larger classes to just ask out loud in a large group, can you please share your thoughts or your insights? It's hard for the students to start the conversation and start speaking about something unless they have something to start from. It can also be difficult to understand the knowledge levels, and that's specifically to continuously assess the students' understanding before summative assessments are coming along. So how do you make sure that you know that the students know what they should be knowing and that they are in the right place before they reach more formal assessments such as exams or hand-ins? And this can also be, of course, from the student perspective. They may not know if they are keeping up. Sometimes it can be good for them to see how their peers are doing, something that they may not always be sharing with each other. And then we also have a lot of varying student needs. And it can be difficult to gain insights into variations in prior knowledge, for example, motivation, learning styles. Students are different and they may have different prerequisites, and they also may be having different levels of motivations and so forth. And that may be something that students are not always super comfortable sharing directly with their educator, for example. So I'm curious to hear, and I'm gonna hide the answers for now. If there is any of these that you experience within your work, please feel free to let me know. Or if there's something else, please fill that in as well. And I'm gonna bring up the QR code again in case someone joined late, and there's no way for me to have the QR code today without it blocking something. So I'm gonna move it to the left side here and then remove it later. So scan this QR code if you joined late and you wanna answer this question. And as you can see, nothing is actually coming in now. And that is because I pressed H on my keyboard for hide. And that means that I'm hiding the responses from the audience. This is a really powerful tool to make sure that the audience is unbiased. So I don't want you to be biased with the majority vote on this question, for example. I want you to be completely have a blank slate when you answer this question. And this feature can be added to any Mentimeter question type, really, to make sure that the students don't get too biased with each other's answers, basically. So I just pressed H again on my keyboard. I can press H again when I want to show the answers. I can also move my mouse at the bottom of the screen, and I have this eye here. So I can also very easily press this one to hide and show responses. And I can see that I have 100 answers here at the bottom right corner. So let me see how many we are in the session. We are 181. So I will probably be waiting just a few more seconds before I answer or showcase the answer here. The answers. So you can always keep track of how many have answered, even though you don't see the answers coming in, and wait until you make sure that most people have had the chance to respond to the question. Let's see, I am going to be showing the answer when I get 120 answers. So for those of you that haven't signed in yet, please do so. You can also go into menti.com on any device that you have and type in this code here at the top if you want to do that rather than scanning the QR code. Almost there. Just a few more votes and then we can showcase the answers. Amazing. One more vote. There we go. All right, so it seems that most of you do recognize the keeping student engaged part, closely followed with understanding students' knowledge level and adapting to varying student needs. Some of you having said something else, and I'm really curious what that could be. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a follow-up question to this one. And I can do that very easily by going to the little light bulb at the bottom left corner here, pressing this one, and then I can just with a click add an open-ended follow-up. So please feel free to share what that something else may be that I haven't covered. And I'm actually I'm gonna change this to something else. Please share. I'm going to just add this title. And now I am ready to share or put in some input here from the group. So I'm going to be hiding the answers again. And if there are any questions, please feel free to have them coming in the Q&A as well. Actually, I'm going to unhide this one to go through them piece by piece. I'm going to make you be a little bit biased now. Working with large group of students, getting students engaged in technical college, got it, seek students' honest feedback. I love that one. Technology, stimulate learning, if they're active during class, sharing presentations and preparations while doing team teaching. A lot of answers coming in here. Keeping cameras on during Zoom, yes, that one I definitely recognize. Keep interest, multilingualism, a lot of really exciting answers here. And already now it's getting quite a lot of answers, and I could potentially scroll through all of them, But what I'm going to do is I am going to use AI to group the responses here, so it's easier for me to get an overview of what the answers are here. So I have this little space button popping up as soon as I have 10 or more answers. So I'm going to use that to group the responses, and then AI is going to do the work for me, and it's going to be easier for me to see the different patterns and trends. So student engagement seems to be the one thing that was not part of the previous one. Interactive teaching, feedback methods, technology challenges. And if I can even go in here and see if which were the specific answers. I can move them to another group if I feel like that suits better, or even add a new group in general. Thank you so much for sharing that. I can always press space again to hide the groups and go through them one by one too. All right, I'm going to move forward with some inspiration and potential solutions in Mentimeter to some of these challenges. So starting off with keeping students engaged, I have a few examples on how you can do that in Mentimeter. And here is the first one, the pin on image, once again, one of my favorites. If last month was a theme park ride, which one would it be? And what I've done here is that I have uploaded a few different adventure park roller coasters or rides, you could say. And I'm asking you to pin whichever one you feel fits most with last month. A really nice way to check in with the students, for example, if you have students in class, or even colleagues if you host meetings, because it can give you an idea a little bit, where are the group finding themselves? Is it a very stressful time? Is it maybe a bit of a merry, maybe I don't even know what this one is called, a carousel, like pretty steady, ongoing flow? Is it a bit more of a roller coaster with very high peaks, very deep lows, so to say? And it's a nice starting point to start conversations, or just make everyone feel seen and heard, spot patterns and so forth. So it looks like for quite a few of you, it's been a bit of a merry-go-round, maybe some highs and some lows, but at least they are coming and going in a steady flow. And for quite a few, it's been more of a roller coaster ride. So also highs and lows, but maybe a little bit more drastic changes and faster changes. So maybe a little bit more turbulent. Some of you have a bit more of a catapult situation going on, which may or may not be good, depending on what you like, I assume. So a bit of a spread group here, but thank you for sharing so much how it has been for you. Just one example of what you can do. Another thing that I can highly recommend is to ask the audience, whether it's colleagues or students, to upvote the Q&A. So once there are questions inside of a Mentimeter Q&A, there is a possibility to upvote for the audience. So they can just push a little button with a thumbs up, and then the most upvoted question will actually pop up for the presenter first. So this is a really nice way to keep students engaged and to prioritize the most relevant questions. So even if students don't have questions themselves, or at least cannot come up with questions themselves, or colleagues for that matter, they may be interested in seeing what others have in terms of questions, and they may also realize that, oh, I actually am curious about this as well, but I didn't think about it myself, because they can see the questions as they come in, upvote them, and then you as a presenter can make sure that the most common ones and popular ones are prioritized. Moving on to how you can understand knowledge levels. I have some examples of this as well. So this is a multiple choice question type. It's by far our most popular question type. And it's a closed-ended question type. And here I am basically asking my audience, are you keeping up with the course? And if some of you can put a no or not sure here, that would be great, because it's going to help to showcase my use case here. So I'm just going to leave this for a few seconds for you to answer. All right, so here I have a class where most seem to be keeping up, which is great. A few are really not keeping up at all. And some of you are not too sure, maybe, maybe not. And something that I'm a little bit curious to know is, okay, what is it that these people, the knows and the not sures, what are their needs, what they may be lacking, what do they need in order to actually keep on track with the course? And what I can then do is I can follow it up with another multiple choice and then segment it with the previous one. So let's see when the answers come in here, what that may look like. Here we go. So as you can see now, the answers that are ticking in are actually segmented based on the group you belong to in the previous question. So still completely anonymous, but it gives me a bit of an idea of the needs of the different groups. So the ones that said no, they will be popping up here in pink, for example. I can even hover over those and get an easier overview of what the needs of those students are. So most of those students seem to want more exercises and quizzes, additional study resources and support materials, and if you also seem to be wanting something else. So here I could potentially also follow up with an open-ended question type and ask, what is this something else? If I wanted to, similarly to what I did when I asked you of your opinion of common challenges. In the not so sure, it seems like I have a bit more of a spread. Most be wanting more exercises and quizzes, closely follow with additional study resources and support materials, and so forth. I can, of course, also see what the yeses need. They may also have some needs and so forth, but it could be an idea for me to zone in a bit more on the ones that may not be keeping up. And this could also be a good exercise for the students to see, is there anything that I need? How do I compare to my peers? What do they need? And so forth. So a bit of a reflection time for the students as well. But if you want to, you don't have to do this in class with the students. You can just ask the questions and then segment afterwards. As I mentioned, it's still anonymous, so no anonymity is being changed here. But you can come back to Mentimeter where everything is saved and do the segmentation afterwards. And in order to do this, you just navigate your mouse to the left side of the screen. And here I have a dashboard popping up with this segmentation button that I'm hovering over here. If I press this one and I go to no segmentation, this is basically what it would have looked like if I did not segment it together. So I could just ask these questions and then continue my lecture and then afterwards come back and do the segmentation, or I can do it in class. Really up to you what you prefer. But in order to do that, I just navigate back to the segmentation button. I choose this one, are you keeping up with the course? I just press it and then Mentimeter does the work for me. So really quite straightforward. All right, moving on to the varying student needs. I have an example here. So here I have a scales question type, which is actually my favorite question type. The pin on image is one of my preferred ones, but I have to say that the scales question type is by far my absolute favorite because it can really have a lot of different dimensions to it. So here I'm asking, which of the following aspects of the course do you feel will require the most effort from you? And that's something I have been seeing being asked by a lecturer specifically. And here I've added understanding key concepts and theories, or they added really, applying knowledge to real world scenarios and so forth. And here I can see the answers coming in real time. As I mentioned before, I can always press H to hide the responses. Highly recommended for scales question type specifically, because that's more opinion based, not too much right or wrong answers. And here removing bias is something I highly recommend. So this is just a mock question for you. But again, I highly recommend hiding this if you do this in real time. And I put low effort to high effort here on the different scales. But this you can freely type whatever you want. And it gives me an idea about where the students find themselves. And if I unhide, you can also, of course, ask this throughout the course to see if there are any opinions changing. But it's also a good starting point once you start a course or a class with new students, for example. So as you can see, I can see an overall average for the blue one, the first question being 2.9, but I can also very easily see how the spread of the answers looks like by hovering over the question. So I can see that 14 people feel like it's going to be really low effort for them to understand key concepts. But for 9 people, it's going to be very, very high effort. And that gives me a little bit of an idea of how the class are spread. It seems like for all of these questions, there is actually a pretty high spread. Maybe the lowest spread being the staying motivated throughout the course. And unfortunately luckily on the low effort side. So it seems like most students will not have too much struggle here staying motivated, but a few do feel that as well. So a really nice question type to get an idea and even start conversations. You can, now that you have the students have an idea of what their peers are thinking, it's easier for them to start conversation. Why do you think that we may be the spread, and so forth and so forth. So that's also how I have seen the scales question type being used. Let's see what questions I have. I see that 2 have been coming in. If you're collecting feedback for training at the end of the training, can you combine the data for a number of courses to give a summary of all feedback? Let me see if I get this straight. If you're collecting feedback for training at the end of the training, can you combine the data for a number of courses to give? Yes, now I think I get it. You can definitely do that. It's not possible to put together inside a Mentimeter all of different data. But what you can do, I will show you in the walkthrough how you can do that in just a second. You can download all of the data points from each Mentimeter presentation that you have collected this data, and then you get an Excel file, and then you can, of course, combine all of those separately and feed them to wherever you want. So there's definitely a way to export all of the data from different Mentimeter presentations. And then through that, you can combine all of the data. So you can't do it inside a Mentimeter per se, but you can export the data and then do it that way. So I will show you how you can download the Excel in the walkthrough in just a second. Really good question. How can I include the open Q&A after students submit their questions? Let me see. How can I include the open Q&A after students submit their questions? Let me see. Maybe maybe you mean how the students can see each other's answers. Is that potentially the question? If that's not the way the question was asked, please feel free to resubmit. I may be misunderstanding. But that is actually automatically turned on. So all of the students will automatically see the answers of other students if they press the open Q&A. So you have to actively turn that off inside of the Mentimeter settings if you don't want to have it. But it's always going to be there automatically by default. If I didn't answer the question, do feel free to resubmit. All right. Well, I promised a walkthrough and we are right there. So I'm going to show you how you can use Mentimeter asynchronously. I've shown you the synchronous version of Mentimeter, but Mentimeter can also be used asynchronously for flipped classroom purposes, or if you want to send out surveys to students, you want to collect feedback after a lecture and so forth. So I'm going to showcase how you can do that as well. I'm going to also show how you can collaborate on presentations with colleagues and how you can access the results of a presentation. So here is where I will also showcase how to download the Excel file, for example. So if I am escape once again to get out into the edit mode, and the first thing I'm going to do is show you how you can use Mentimeter asynchronously. And the one thing I need to do is to move my mouse to the top, middle left side of the screen where we have this cogwheel and settings button. If I press this one, I get different type of mentees popping out. So if I'm doing something synchronously, such as what I'm doing today with you listening in to me in real time, then presentation mode is highly recommended. And that is also the default setting of Mentimeter questions. So you have to actively go in and toggle it to do surveys. And that means that you as participants will follow along and interact with me as I move along in the presentation, which is again highly recommended. However, if you want to use Mentimeter for survey purposes, you of course want them to be able to go through the presentation in their own pace, and you cannot possibly sit there with every single one and move them forward. Then you just need to toggle the survey mode. And all question types in Mentimeter work in survey modes, except for voting on responses and the quiz question type. So if you have those question types in, this will be grayed out, but otherwise all Mentimeter question types will work asynchronously as well. I do want to showcase our accessibility feature here as well. At the very bottom here, we have an accessibility checker that you can press and get an idea of how accessible your presentation is. So I get a pretty weak accessibility score for this presentation, so I have some homework to do. The text contrast seems to be good, but I'm missing a lot of alt text for my images. I can even press these ones here. I'm not going to do that now, but I can press them and then get navigated to that slide and easily put in an alt text for those images. So that's a bit of homework for me. And then I have some other things that I should maybe be thinking about, like some visualizations seem to have low contrast, and the pinned slide may not be super useful or super applicable, rather, to people with visual impairments. So that can be good to think about as well. You can collaborate on presentations with colleagues by navigating up to the upper right side. I have my little emoji and image here. My colleague Itai, who is moderating this session today, is also here. And if I want to add more people, I can press this little plus button here. Here I can type in the name of anyone I want to invite, press invite, and then they will be able to collaborate with me on this presentation. They will be able to see all of the results and so forth as well. If, however, you want to send a copy to a colleague or share the results with students from a presentation, for example, then you can navigate up to the slides side here. And if I press this one, I can copy the link here and send it to either students or a colleague, and then they can make a copy of the presentation to their own account or just see the slides if it's a student, for example. So there is also one way to share a presentation. In order to access the results of a presentation, I need to navigate from the Create tab here at the middle top of my screen to the Results tab. So if I press the results here, I am going to be navigated into the results page, as you may be quite obvious. So here on the right side, I get a bit of an overview of how the participation has been, how many Q&A questions I've gotten, how many answers I've gotten on the different questions. And here is also at the bottom, the black button here is where I can download an Excel spreadsheet of all of my answers. I can also download them to PDFs or choose specific slides that I want to download to PDFs. I also get a bit of a summary here of all of the answers. I can do further segmentation of question types. For example, I'm going to show you, you can even segment the open-ended question types here. Let me see if I got it right here. For example, here I can segment these open-ended question types with, for example, are you keeping up with the course? So now I can see what answers come from which group of students. So here, for example, I can see these ones, which ones are coming from what students, basically. All right, getting back into the Create tab. And I have a question. During a live Zoom teaching, many faculty present or share a PowerPoint and then minimize and pull up Menti and then toggle back and forth. They say the other option doesn't work well. Any insight? That is a perfect segment to my next slide, because we actually have an updated PowerPoint plugin now. So that may or may not have been the issue. Sometimes it could be the firewall of your organization that blocks a PowerPoint plugin, for example. But if you press the link here on the screen, you can navigate to how to use PowerPoint and add Mentimeter into PowerPoint. And we recently released a new one that should be working better. We know that the previous one had some stability issues and some issues in general. So now we have fixed those and came out with a new one. So please do feel free to navigate your colleagues there or try it out yourself. And if you want to use Mentimeter and instead add PowerPoint into Mentimeter, I have a guide here as well. You can either add it as images, or you can use the integrations at the very bottom when you add a slide, which I showed you at the very start of this session today. So hopefully that helped. And if not, please feel free to resubmit. Can be a bit different sometimes if it works for different organizations, but hopefully it will work well for you. And if it doesn't, please feel free to reach out to our support. They're usually very helpful in supporting with those questions. All right, I promised a little bonus question. So we're investigating a Mentimeter integration through LMS systems. So an LMS integration or an LTI. And if you are listening now and you're an educator and you are really interested in sharing your thoughts on what a good use case would be, how you would like it to look like, your ideal situation and so forth, please leave your details. If you are signed in through the Mentimeter now, you will have a possibility to share your details there. It's not going to pop up here on the screen. It will only be visible for me. So don't worry, your name is not going to pop up here on this screen today. But do please feel free to share that. I'm going to also leave the QR code here to the left for a few seconds if anyone wants to bring in their details as well, because we are really, really curious to hear from you what you think would be useful and valuable for you with a Mentimeter or a potential Mentimeter LMS integration. So just stay here for a few seconds, and also if there are any questions, please feel free to submit them too. Oh, great. Here comes a question just because of that. Sorry, learning management system. So Moodle, Canvas, Brightspace, Blackboard, those are some common LMSs, learning management system. At least that should be the correct one. So if you are working with any of those platforms or someone that I haven't mentioned, please feel free to submit if you want to share your opinions and thoughts around that. Very good question. Thank you for clarifying that so that I got a chance to clarify it. How often is this live session offered? Is there a schedule on the website? Very good question. I believe Itai, my colleague, can share in the chat the link to all of our sessions. We are offering at least one introductory each semester. We may have two some semesters as well. And we have a few other sessions lined up for this spring. I know we have one, it's not yet on the website, but it will very soon be. That's going to be focusing on formative assessment. We hope to have one that's more around AI and using Mentimeter for AI, and we have much more lined up. So we will soon launch them on that page, and I will leave it to Itai to share that in the chat, because we do have quite a lot of sessions offered each semester. Thank you for asking. All right. If anyone is still typing here, please feel free to just stay. You don't need to move to the next page if you still want to share. Thank you so much for those that have shared their details. We are super excited to hear your inputs and make the best potential LMS integration ever. But I would love to hear a little bit of a recap. What benefits do you believe Mentimeter can offer you in your work after having listened to me here today? Oh, I love this one. It's so much more than a polling tool. I definitely agree. Lovely. Giving students a chance to participate, lecture preparation, real-time feedback and interaction, keeping students awake. I do love that one. Interactive tools, more interactivity in classroom, helps people state their thoughts without feeling pressured. I love this one. Really making sure that you are inclusive. Oh, I have some more questions. I will bring those up. Will it work with Cornerstone and on Adobe LMS? We don't know. Please feel free to give your details if you want to share your opinions. We're still just exploring. We don't know what it's going to look like or if it's going to happen. So please feel free to share your details, and we would love to hear more from you around that. Still very early. Do you also offer advanced level sessions? And we used to have sessions that we called advanced, but we felt like they were a bit vague on what it was that you were supposed to be learning in those. And it also became a little bit repetitive for people that wanted to come back and learn new things. So what we've done instead is we do more focus session on specific topics. So a bit more advanced already there, because it's not too much around where you click in Mentimeter or how you kind of get started, but it's more around the specific use case. So for example, formative assessment or whatever you feel that you would be interested in, we're really happy to know. Feel free to reach out to a support and let us know if there's any specific topic you want to learn about, because I definitely want to hear from you. So yes, we do, but they're not called advanced level sessions per se. Oh, let me see if I can mark this one's answer. There we go. Where are you based in? I'm in Stockholm. So as you can probably hear from my accent, I am not born in an English-speaking country. I am born in Sweden. I'm Swedish, and Swedish is my native tongue. And English is my second language. And if you meant Mentimeter as a whole, here I am talking about myself, but if you meant Mentimeter, we are actually a global company. So the headquarters is in Stockholm, but we also have offices in Toronto, Canada, and in Sydney, Australia. So I hope, now maybe it's a bit embarrassing. I thought you asked me, but maybe you meant Mentimeter. All right, I have 56 answers, so I'm going to use another AI feature of ours to summarize all of these amazing answers. I'm going to go back to the little light bulb here, and I'm going to go to a feature that's called summary. Also using AI, and if I press this one, it's going to start generating some insights. And here I have a nice little summary of what you believe are the benefits of Mentimeter in your work. So first and foremost, it enhances student engagement. It facilitates real-time interaction. It amplifies student voices, makes learning interactive and fun, and provides instant feedback. So some really nice takeaways, and I'm really excited to see that those are your takeaways, because that's what I'm talking to a lot about, and that's what I was wanting you to learn also from this session today. So thank you so much for that. I've added some resources here. We have our Mentimeter Academy, which is self-paced free courses that you can navigate into and learn more. We have one around more inclusive teaching, for example, and more specific topics. We also have our YouTube, which is a lot of step-by-step videos on how to, for example, use the PowerPoint plugin. We have articles, which is more text-written step-by-step guides on how to use different things. And as I mentioned a few times during the session today, please feel free to reach out to our support if you have any issues, if you have feedback, questions, or anything at all. Feel free to reach out to them. They're really helpful and usually answer really fast. So feel free to do that. That was it for today. I have one more question, though, that I'm going to take. Thank you so much for that feedback. All right, then I guess we'll be wrapping up. Thanks so much, everyone, and have a great rest of your day and evening.